Oh my god!
First story I wrote was the story of my own life.
Sumukhi Suresh to write the dialogue in this film is the fact that we didn't want these two guys to write a story about a 25-year-old female influencer.
What is happening in this movie now? Wow, this is like a writer rom-com. Damn it. Hi, thank you so much. This is the first episode of The Writer's Room. The show is going to be fun. It's going to be a conversation about the writing of Control. There will be conversation with them. There will, of course, be question and answers in the end. Okay, so we'll call the people, the men of the hour. Yeah, shall we do that? Okay, cool. So everybody knows Avinash Sampath. He wrote the screenplay for AK vs. AK. He wrote Ghost Stories also. I just found out today. He also wrote 2024, but I think it's called 2024. Mainly writer, he lives in Amsterdam. He's come to visit us. So he's that guy you want to be. You know, you're abroad, you're having a good time, you have a great wife, okay. And side mein movies are also being made. That's the life we want, yeah? And Vikramaditya Motwane, you know, he's a regular guy. Okay, you know, just like that only, he was passing car. So we are like, sir, you want to come or join us or what? So he's a producer, director, everybody knows that. But today we want to focus on his writing, okay. He's a writer also. How many of you guys have watched AK vs. AK? Yeah, AK vs. AK was the duos first, I think. We'll find out if I'm wrong. Put your hands together. Start clapping. I'll see if they're there. There. Put your hands together for Avinash Sampath and Vikramaditya Motwane! Yeah! Guys! That was fun. Hi.
Hi.
What did you guys think about the introduction? Anything you want to change about it?
No, thanks for plugging my wife in the intro.
Thanks for plugging Ghost Stories.
Yeah.
Ghost Stories.
You wrote Ghost Stories? You never mentioned this.
It wasn't Avinash, it was
reason.
Avinash Sampath who wrote Ghost Stories.
His ghost writer. I'm so sorry.
Let's go there. See, this is the hard
The
part.
only
It's a
place
hard
the
part.
joke will kill. Sorry, the hard part?
He's going up against a comedian. There's no comeback from.
Please, come on. There's a group of sad people. We'll all be fine. They're all waiting for payments. See, look at this.
Writers?
You know, one of my favorite stories was that he's written Dandanath and Goal, guys. Yeah. I cannot believe it.
For director Vivek Agnihotri.
Yeah. Just saying, when I watched the movie, I was going with Ganda Yoga, and then I said, "Such a movie." And then 30 years later, when I met him, he's like, "Yeah, I was the writer." I was like, "No wonder." So I felt very good at that point. So that is his the movie that I thought was unknown. Clearly, you guys know. They are also the writers of Control. One person has not watched it. This guy. I want to share two
Tell me the
words.
story also.
As you all know, Control is a rom-com. So, Avi's a romantic kind of guy. And the story was by... He's still by. You're not a very screen guy yourself.
No, I'm not a screen guy.
Yeah,
So
so-
quick backstory. Yeah.
Yeah, please, that would be great.
1977. Advertising is still what I do for a living. That's what pays the bills. Screenwriting is a passion that turned into more than a passion, large part thanks to Vikram. The few people who answer
This guy.
the few people who answer my emails. That's genuinely, it's one thing to write, but the harder part is in getting anyone to read your stuff. 10 years ago, slowly took a shot at screenwriting.
Whoa, what is the first thing like you wrote?
AK was
Was it the first thing or before that you wrote something? You know?
I did, yeah.
But there it is. That's the one.
We'll lose 90 minutes to that.
Whoa.
So
we're ready.
the first story I wrote was the story of my own life.
Okay, I'm going to just one.
Please.
That's the introduction I actually got to Avi. It's like, so partner I used to work with, who used to be friends with Avi, and he said there's a writer friend of mine, and he's written a story about his own life, and it starts in the back of a cop car. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's his own life. He's like, yeah. So anyway,
The ticket price will be a lot higher.
Yeah, whoa, yeah, that's right. That's a theatrical. It's a 300 crore. Sorry. So the AK was the first thing.
Correct. So I took a calculated chance at the story where I knew because Anurag Kashyap was in the mix. So I said, hey, let me write a story where Kashyap will also play a role in it. So that's the story I wrote of a director kidnapping the daughter of an actor or a family member of an actor, and then shooting that in real time would be the story. So I called it AK vs. AK, sent it out to the guys at Phantom. And at that point, it was Anurag Kashyap versus... What do I care? I'm sitting in Amsterdam swinging for the fences. So I went with Anurag Kashyap versus Amir Khan.
Whoa!
Boom! And I sent it in 2014, I think, 10 years ago. And 10 days later, I got back a mail that said, Vikram was really interested. And I was like, hey,
wow, this is like a writer rom-com. Yeah. I say, yeah, you went for something else and you got like the gem. You got a soulmate. Oh my God, that's crazy. That's disgusting. But tell me Control's story beginning.
It was the pandemic, and we were all just sitting around at home doing nothing. And I got a call from this gentleman called Sharad Devarajan, who runs Graphic India. Do you know the Screen Life format? And I'm like, you mean searching and etc. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that same format. So I'm like, I love it. I mean, I thought searching was a masterpiece. And he's like, so the producer of Searching, Timur Bekmambetov, wants to do some more Screen Life films, and he wants to sort of like do something in India, and you're the first person we're reaching out to. And I'm like, I'm in. What do you need? And I've said this before, like Avi is the best person I know in terms of world building from a screenplay perspective. I think it's fantastic. So I was like, okay, you've Screen Life, you had seen Searching and all that. So I'm like, you've seen it? Yeah. I was like, do you want to do anything in that format? He said, yeah. And then we just started chatting about a couple of ideas and then landed on this one. Avi's like, he sent me the thing and like he put up the screenshot, that Control R it was called, and then
Oh, nice.
yeah. And I wrote back saying, great, or love it, or something.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Cool.
Correct, cool. Exactly.
Exactly.
From the makers of Cool.
From the makers of Cool.
And that's how it sort of like began. And then because it was a period of time, it took its own journey. I think it started from being something like 2 pages to...
Which is a great digression for me to ask, that everyone feels like when they have an idea and they're like, oh my God, this is going to be a great movie. At that point, you feel like you're going to finish writing this movie in like a month. What do you think is a believable timeline for a story to go from a concept to an actual shooting of movie, not releasing? Because that's a different, trauma.
So AK was AK, started out in it took 6.5 years. And when I first sent it to him saying, hey, let's make it with Amir Khan, his reply was, no, it's going to take at least 2 years to get Amir Khan. But we took 6 years to make the movie anyway. So outside of that, but then again, that being said, when Vikram reached out with the Screen Life projects, I pitched him 2-3 different ideas, and one of which became 2024.
Oh.
And that movie went from zero to shoot to being released in about 8 months.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I don't think there's one answer to this. As a writer, this is, I think
Yeah.
I won't get too philosophical too
Please
soon.
get philosophical.
No, but
that's what we all live for.
Genuinely, I think each project finds its journey, and it's a really tough one to go, hey, some stories just fly, you can do it in one draft, whatever, and maybe it'll go through. This one, I'm sure, we already we worked for 2 years, and that in itself would have been 7-8 draft in itself, and then he works with you, would have been twice as many, and...
So yeah, believably.
Udan took from script to release 7 years. Lutera took script to screen 7 years, 8 years. Bhavesh from script to screen was 8 years. Trapped was 6 months. AK versus AK, as he said, was, from his script to the screen 6 years. This one has been 4 years. Honestly, it's like it always sort of, in my experience, takes that long. I think every time a producer comes and tells me, oh, let's write something, how long is it going to take? I'm like, a year. And they're like, a year? And I'm like... Trust me, it takes a year to write a screenplay. That's just the way it is. So,
if you say I'll take a year, what if the work just leaves you? Which is pretty much half the writers worry. But that's why they're like, no, we'll finish it tomorrow. Day after tomorrow.
We all say that. We all say that. 3 months. Screenplays in 3 months. I'll have a draft in 3 months. But you know it's going to take a year.
You know that draft is going to be just
no,
like...
because that's the thing. So it's a producer will come, how long? You say a year, and then they say a year. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll give
when
it
do you want it?
So then you work backwards from there.
And Control was from the pandemic, you say 2020 to
Yep.
2022 would be story to screen.
No, so the story, if you,
No,
except
we had a screenplay in 2022.
Except for the one person who hasn't seen. We're sorry.
No, this is a full spoilers for you.
Because
Now. There's going to be... He has to deal with it. Yeah. Are you okay with spoilers?
Yeah, we started writing this, I think, in about August 2020. And the story at that point was a completely... it had the same broad strokes. It was about a couple going through a terrible one-sided breakup, needs an AI in her life to sort of eternal sunshine her way through it. But then at that point, I think AI in itself wasn't... ChatGPT hadn't launched. OpenAI, I think they were just doing some stuff. They hadn't come out at that point. But we knew the 2020 was just the start. There was AI in the ether. Because creating an AI engine is just one of the most expensive things you can do on this planet. So at that point, the answer actually was, there is an AI, you think it's an AI, and then finally when you reveal what's behind the AI, it's classic India Jugaad style. It's a bunch of people in a basement. Yeah. And that story was, he was a stalker who's actually in love with the Nella character. And eventually we were leaving Screen Life a lot earlier, And then it becomes a classic story of she tries to find the person who is literally ruining her life.
Oh my god, we're a bunch of people in basement, just saying.
That could have been. So from there, so we lived with that for a year. Then we turned that into a classic straight thriller, her trying to find the stalker, blah, 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 whatever that was. And then at some point, AI in itself caught up with our writing. And
yeah, that's true, yeah.
So then we realized, hey, now we're opening... it's a topic that's in the zeitgeist at that moment. It would be unfair to sort of... We're asking some big questions here, then might as well do justice to the questions we're attempting to ask while we were writing, not to society or any such thing.
Yeah, then we went to the whole sentient AI thing as well. Then that was the other version. So when we had the guys in the basement, then we're like, okay, AI goes sentient and actually sort of starts the monologue.
Yeah. If you guys don't know what the monologue is, it's on his Instagram. You can check it out.
Yeah, so there was that version, the sentient AI version. But then I think we couldn't really figure convincingly how to. We couldn't consider the third act in all of these things. The third act is ending up becoming a bit of a like, how does Nella fight back? What's the fight back? And I could never think of a convincing reason to keep any of that in the screen life format. It was like, why would she?
Oh yeah.
Why would we be still in screen life if she's going to go out there and actually sort of like, whether it's versus the stalker against the sentient AI, how would she end up taking revenge?
Yeah.
Against this, and I think we just walked ourselves. We were just going round and round in circles, and then.
Which is a conversation a lot of people are having. The ending is very like, oh, see, the heads are nodding heavily. Which would you have preferred another? Because I really like this ending.
I love this ending.
Right?
100%. I don't think they could have. I'm just. What do I?
Like, how can we possibly?
I'm going to say and leave to Amsterdam. But 100%. I think if people like this ending, great. If they hate this ending, I think it's even better. I think there's a reason why people hate this ending. It's only there's a certain discomfort that comes with it, and yeah, I think
it's also I feel like they want to know how can we fight back. Like, why didn't you give us the solution that if this happens to us?
Correct. Personally, I don't think we can only ask questions. I think I don't know whether qualified to give.
Yeah.
It'll come in a sequel.
Yeah. Anyone had an alternate ending for Control here? Say no. 2022. This is the guy with the old diary.
But was there any version of it where she would sort of join, like she's personal influence, so she could have actually raised awareness for it some way, like we have internet freedom pages and all that, like.
That's little bad.
She tried, no?
Yeah. Yeah. Then she went into deepfake. I think that's what you're saying. That uske baad.
Was there any possibility of that people of influence are the ones that can make a difference? So.
That's what you believe. I think that, but really, when you're up against big tech, how much influence do you really have in your life over many different kind of things? So one is that. Second part is surveillance. Third part is data. There was so much conversation, and then AI, and there was so much conversation happening around that we tried to kind of get all of that to sort of dovetail into an ending, and I was just like, you know what, you're going with a thriller, why not go for the realistically bleak ending? But also, I think the magic was finding the fact that AI Joe lands up, and it's like there's something very, very tragic about that moment, but also very emotional about that moment, which kind of takes away from the absolute bleakness of the ending. That it's a gut punch. It's
also interpret this. It's a victory for Nella in a way. If this is what she wanted, she got it. If she was feeling lonely and she wanted, do you know what I mean? In that sense, from her perspective, she's winning. From our perspective as outsiders, as daily users of tech, it is in a way, there's so many ways to interpret that. It is an addict returning to the bottle.
Exactly. And I think from a screenplay perspective, the fact that in that ending, there's the fact that it's Stockholm Syndrome. You have to go back and to the same place where it has ruined your life in a certain sort of way, but you're so attached to it, and you still want your validation, because that's what all of us want all the time. And I think that there's something very, in my mind, was very nice and emotional about that, but also the fact that, so there was the emotional ending, there's also the bleakness of the entire fact that we are all just slaves of eventually, plus the fact that there's, in my mind at least, deeply kind of political overtones in that ending, which you can't, in this country you can't say, but it's there.
In Amsterdam you can say. So when but
on behalf of the EU, yes.
I remember also asking, when after so much has happened to her, would she possibly even get back on social media? If I went through this, I will never touch which is not the truth. Because if that was the case, I would have watched the movie and then thrown my phone away and then bought a Nokia.
But that's typical of any movie. We all watch the movie and we're like, oh my god, this is like so bad, and half an hour later we're all back on our phone. it doesn't, it's like
who's making a great reel now? That's true. The rule is, of course, story, screenplay, dialogue. And I have noticed that you have that format, but it just never sort of goes through that. Like, it's not like you finish story means you finish story. You finish screenplay, then it's over. It always comes down to, at some point, you go back to story and fix it. So I know that it's like a 10-headed monster. Like, it just never ends. But at what point do you think a story is good to go for a screenplay?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
But
I love it. I love it already.
But just as the process thing, I'd love to finish sort of story at a beat sheet level, and I keep telling whoever I work with, please, can we just all agree that this beat sheet is what we're going to stick with? Because it's impossible and it's incredibly hard. You do the screenplay, put in the hours, do 120 pages, and now we're going to try and fix a story. At this point, it just gets too much, at least as a writer. Please give a round of applause for her dialogues.
Oh, yay! Oh, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, I was just focusing so much on the story screenplay question.
Correct.
That
We'll come to dialogue.
We come to dialogue.
Yeah, 100%.
Dialogue, you guys take over.
100%.
And then you guys go like, so
Yeah,
then
so
what you felt?
correct,
Then when you woke up, what you
correct.
felt? I usually struggle a lot with the beat sheet because I end up writing thorough beats, like the entire scene design. And as I write it, by the time I've hit 30th scene, it's just one lines after that. You know, and by the end of it, I'm like, she dead or something like that. I'm just not writing anything. As a hygiene, as receivers of documents, like what would you say that, like, don't do she dead or...
But again, she dead might be fine if you're working with the director who decodes she dead. It's. I think it's completely that relationship. You don't want to waste time. Let's just go, because then you can write as many beat sheets as possible. She going, she alive, she not so alive, she dead. You can do that much faster.
That's a great beat sheet. She alive, she not so, she dead.
Like now, I think between us, we can. It's literally.
Yeah.
It's reached that level of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like shorthand. For me, like shorthand in writing is actually kind of fine. Same with Avi and me, the relationship. At least like it's all, even if it's confusing, but it's like at least now I don't think there's any sort of like thing where he can put in even stuff which is like, okay, here's version 1, here's version 2, here's version 2A, and then it comes back to sort of like this thing, and one will get it and one will sort of be able to address it because there's no hiding anything over here. Let's just put everything out there, on paper. It's easier to be able to say too much.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff can go out to make something really nice versus too little, because then you're like, guys, we need more here in this section. Needs more, and that section needs more. And I always find I'm very good at being able to like, pick up this stuff.
Yes. What is the right number of story for me to capture a director or producer's attention?
I think the main part of story is essentially the first act, which is the most detailed. And the thing is that once you've given, and especially within a writer to a director or that kind of stuff, is the moment you sort of like fleshed out that first act and to most of it, the potential of act 2 and act 3.
Screenplay now, a lot of, which is great because sometimes everyone knows why there's a dialogue writer, but sometimes they don't. What is the difference between screenplay and dialogues, keeping this universe in mind?
Okay, the simple answer is, I'll tell you my simple answer. My simple answer is I come from Chennai. Second language was Tamil and then French. So, उसके बाद
the French control
उसके बाद ना पूरा खराब हो गया. So we went. I mean, I'm confident to write the dialogue, but I don't think the movie is going to do well.
Then in this case, the specificity of hiring Sumukhi Suresh to write the dialogue in this film is the fact that we didn't want these two guys to write a story about a 25-year-old female influencer. You want to get someone who actually knows the people, knows the world, understands the language, better than we ever would. And I think that if Avi and me, sort of like, there would have been slightly, I don't know how cynical it would have got, but there would have been a very kind of like looking at them as opposed to being an influencer, being a comic, being an influencer, being somebody who is very social media savvy, very front and center when it comes to your Instagram stuff. And so it was that. It was the fact that you want an authentic voice. And I think, and plus the fact that your writing is great and the comic is great. And a very deliberate sort of attempt to say, okay, we want to make this comic. We want to make it...
which was nice.
Because knowing what's going to happen later in the film, you want the first 20 minutes to just be a breeze. You want it to be a blast. You want it to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then let's get into the serious stuff afterwards. But have a really great time. So I think that was the...
I also remember the first time we did a writer's retreat, okay, in Goa, which is my first writer's retreat, okay. Usually my writer's retreat is Vakola. That's what it is. Very close to airport. That's what it is. And Taj Santa Cruz is there. No, that's where. But I remember going, and I was so excited because I was like, I'm going to bring research. I remember telling all my writers also, I'm like, all of you have to give me your favorite influencers. Worst people. Okay. They don't do anything. And as I was pitching, I genuinely enjoyed I enjoy social media. I'm actually not someone who's like social media is a monster. I'm like, no, it's great. And I remember saying it so much like I'm like social media di or I wo. And I remember you guys were like, she really likes social media. Guys, I don't think she's being ironic. She really thinks it's beneficial, which is true. I think when did we shoot? I think we shot some fashion reel or something where I was like, can we use one song? And I was like, on this song, this dress has to drop, and then a new dress comes in. And I remember you were just like, what is happening in this movie now? We started with writing a thriller, and now there are fashion transitions in my movie. But I have also been told that dialogue writing is also like, do I have word like, रिश्ते में हम तुम्हारे बाप लगते हैं? Those lines also.
I think the best kind of dialogue writing, and this is which I've seen with you in this one, and I've seen with Anurag, my other favorite dialogue writer, is that, and the similarity between the two of you is incredible in the fact that you guys both write the night before you're supposed to present the dialogue. Which is the little secret that's been let out of the...
Nothing like that.
There is a sense of like, when the scene works, let it be. Don't try and do extra to show, okay, look, I'm writing dialogue and here's the dialogue needs to be in that kind of stuff. So when the scene needs it, you sort of like do it. When the scene doesn't need it and it works perfectly, dramatically the way it is, just translate literally the way it is. Don't do anything. Don't play around very much.
Yeah.
Get the beats right. Don't try and do much. And I think that is what I've always found from good dialogue writing versus bad dialogue writing. Like bad dialogue writers are always trying too hard to make themselves felt in the, to make that dialogue felt, to make themselves felt. And it starts to feel unnatural when the characters speak it. And I think that balance is always something which is, it's tricky, but...
I've always felt that dialogues should be as natural as possible, even if it's a historical. I'm sure history, maybe no one's really talking in captions and like, everyone's not quoting Kabir on a daily basis. So which is what I believe. I don't know. I have once also shared a completely wrong file. He's 1 hour away from shoot and I'm like PFA and he's like, motherfucker, this is not the file. What are you doing? He of course didn't say that. He was like, hi, this is wrong file. Please send right file.
I think it also marked the wrong colors.
Yes, I marked down wrong color. He had specifically said, this is color, and I marked it in the actual draft, I had marked it right. I also had my draft with my colors. I sent it, my draft with my colors. He's like, मैं 1 घंटे में camera roll हो रहा है, और तू अब बकचोदी कर रही है. So, yes.
No one gets my color coding. I'm very upset.
I had also picked the opposite colors to you. So when that file reached him, I feel like he freaked out. He's like, did our movie change? What is happening? Do you think writers should know the process of filmmaking?
No, it's not important. It's just important for me sometimes. But again, that's like because I can write and I know that I can. I'd rather most writers just write as naturally as they can, because eventually I just feel that if you're gonna curtail, sometimes you wish that, oh man, I wish they knew that don't write exterior night, ocean, because bloody hell, how expensive it is to shoot that kind of stuff. But then you're like, you write it. I'll figure it out afterwards. So. Yes, in the beginning there will always be that, writer needs to know, you need to know the budget of what you're writing, right? Yeah. Sometimes, which is still true, in the sense that, okay, if you're writing an indie film, don't write scenes that are ridiculously expensive.
Okay, cool, guys, you don't have to do everything. Okay, don't worry. A lot of writers also told you would understand editing, so it would be better for you to write scenes out, especially dialogue writers. I get this advice a lot from a lot of producers, writers, saying that to edit pe bet. If you sit in the edit, then you know ki acha scene is going to be like this, so you can write beats like that. What do you?
Personally, I'm just too old and too lazy to turn up for all of these things. I'm happiest sitting at my dining table writing. I think it's just generally nice to know, at least as a writer, I think for me it's nice to know all the stages of what this is. I don't think you need to know all of it in detail.
Well, I mean, in a way, editing is writing. If you look at the art or the function of filmmaking being little bits of information one on top of the other. You're given, as an audience, you're given information number 1, and then you start to layer that. Like, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 till 100. And those bits of information that come in layers is what a screenplay is, but it's also what the edit is.
Is there like an ideal profile of someone who's a good screenwriter?
Here's a weird thing that happens once because I'm just a young new writer, even though I've been doing this. I'll get a call from an uncle. Hey, I saw this movie, love it. And then he'll say, I'll call you in November. I have a story to tell you. All of the jokes aside, I think everyone's got a story in them. Now, is everyone a screenwriter? I'd like to believe everyone can be a screenwriter, especially now. There's no excuse. If you really want to hone this skill, there's enough YouTube videos. There are enough masters of this, enough professionals doing this stuff that you can learn this thing. I don't think there's one format to this. You spend enough time, write a few things, study it well enough, come up with your own format of this thing. If nothing else, just write for yourself. Believe you're a screenwriter.
Yeah.
Whether somebody reads it is anyone's guess, but yeah,
Aw.
I'd like to believe everyone can.
Thanks to you, now everyone's going to write.
That's okay.
And
That's
we're
it.
all going to lose work. No. It's also the multiple experiences. A lot of people say also now life experiences makes you a richer writer. But now what if someone's not, but they're still a good writer? You know, so what is it that defining moment where you go like, okay, cool, this person.
One of the most annoying things for me when reading screenplays is reading like paragraphs of description, and I'm like, man, that's not how screenplays are written. Like, it's never a situation of like, which film have you seen which gives you all that detail in the opening shot? They don't, right? So don't tell me there's dew falling off the leaves of the trees. Screenplay writing takes studying, or
Yeah.
it takes, you know, whether you've had to have read a bunch of screenplays or had a lot of practice of writing it, had watched a lot of films to understand really what sort of happens. But a story, honestly, anybody can write a story if you put together a beginning, middle, and ending. I think there's a lot of instinct. I haven't studied screenplay writing. Even my writing was coming very instinctively from
Yeah.
the fact of, okay, I've worked and I've read screenplays, so let's give it a shot.
Yeah, the screenplay hygiene, that's true.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think again, you can write on. You just need to know the science of this. Know a few of the rules so you can break them.
As you said, I think there's now, especially with the current thing, there's like the network feedback, then there's the producer feedback, then there's the director feedback. For a writer, honestly, what is something they should just focus on? Like, this is the feedback I should stick to. And I'm saying now, as someone who's pitching to like different bodies.
Vikrams.
Okay, cool. All screenplays sent to-
So honestly, it's not as simple as saying you've written a screenplay and you give it to somebody to read. Because before screenplay, there's been the story. Before the story, there's been the idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes, and for me, Ishika is actually the person who's always, if there's an idea, there's always like,
Shout out.
she's right there.
Right, guys. Guys, you have clap, guys. Perfect.
You always need to bounce an idea off somebody. It's very difficult to sort of like be in your head. You need people that you can just talk to and talk through a process. And kind of like say, okay, here's an idea. And then as you sort of like hear yourself talk, because so much of it is in your head. When you actually talk to people and you verbalize it, immediately you're like, okay, this sounds like shit as I'm saying it right now. So forget, don't ignore what I said. Don't listen to me. Or you've said it and you've got some amount of feedback, and you have to find those people you know in your life who you can sit down and do the elevator pitch to. What I love about Avi and me is the fact when we write together, and we've done AK versus AK and Control just happen to be the published ones. There's a lot of stuff we've done. But it's great. He's in Amsterdam, I'm in Bombay. And we've actually had 3-hour-long video calls where for like there's moments where like for 5 minutes we're doing nothing but just staring, you know, like this is that. He's off staring into space, I'm off staring somewhere else in the silence. It's very comfortable. It's actually, it's not like, okay, this is getting weird that two guys on a video call are not
It's a different kind of control movie.
It's not. Or I mean, a lot of my talking, for example, I do when if I'm walking in my building in the evening and he's in Amsterdam and I'm on the phone. And again, there's just like these 2 minutes of silence where we know the other guy is thinking, but it's not like, hello, are you there?
Yeah,
Are you still there? You have to be able to find those people. I know it's not going to be a situation of very nice, sir. You know, like I know there'll be okay, I like this, but I don't think this works. Or I like that, but you know, so.
Aisha, Sumaira and I wrote Pushpavali season 2. And I think I remember we finished the whole show writing. Thank you. That's great plug. Great plug. And after the whole show finished, and this is the first time I was working with Aisha. And I said, Aisha, do you want to share something like, you know, anything we can improve with writing this show? And then she's like, yeah, you guys took a long time, you know. And we took 8 months and we thought it was a short time. Okay, she said, I would have finished this in like 4 months. She's like, you go too much back and forth. But again, she's the person who I go again, you know, writing wise, because in the room there's a rhythm where she's the fast writer. Sumaira's the joke. Sumaira loves writing doing the joke writer, and I go but do you think we'll finish the whole screenplay? I'm like, but guys, do you think this makes sense? And then they hate me for it. But feedback wise, I think funny and unfunny is a big thing, and I think we've realized now that funny is not even like ha funny. It's just that, is it honest? I think that's our code word for honest. Like, are we seeing the most honest thing in this scene?
Is writing humor harder, especially because put 4 people in a room, a joke.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's got a different sense. I'm curious how.
I'm going to talk for me, that I think since it's on, I get to go on open mics. So what I do also is I pitch a lot of jokes during open mic. I end up a lot of lines or a lot of ideas or premises for anything. I end up pitching to the audience, and I just see that, okay, how are they going to react to it? And then I go back and I'm like, hey, listen, this was what I felt would be the best reaction to it. But I have a feeling it's more sad as a humor room. I think it's a roller coaster funny wise, but what really works for us is sharing anecdotes every day, like some funny dumb shit that has happened to us, which has nothing to do with the story. The other's like, oh, I also have a funny story like that. So then just gets your juices running that, okay, now if this is the scene and if there was a funny story involved in this, how will it pick up? Like it immediately aligns itself. We read out scenes like, that's the rule. That's everyone has to read out the scene so that when it reaches any of the producer, they don't feel like, who wrote this? So that's that. Anyone has any question? Yeah. Oh, great. We'll start with them.
It's like you've written your first screenplay and a skit for pilot or something. Like, what is the next steps that you can approach, and like, how do you go about building a confidence or even progressing from there on?
There's always something told to writers, right? Like when and I used to find it very insulting once upon a time. Tera picture ka one line kya hai? And I'm like, what do you mean one line? My film is more than a one line. It's so much deeper. But I think that one line, which you now call a log line, I think is a very important thing to refine, because it just keeps you focused as to what your film or your series or whatever is really about. From your log line to your short synopsis, from your short synopsis to your large synopsis to a treatment of number of pages with your characters, and then from then on to screenplay. So I would always say build up from the very core of it and then get bigger and bigger. Nowadays, the first document that anybody wants is a pitch doc, because that is what it'll tell you, okay, this is what my film or my series is about, this is what my characters are, this is what my world is, this is the people who will inhabit it. So that can have art, it can have pictures, it can have graphics. Avi is great at pitch docs, you should ask him also.
Sorry, just a follow-up. So when you send that, I mean, isn't your idea or concept stolen?
There are enough safeguards for that. I mean, number one, no moment you've done something like that, please register it at the Writers Association.
Yeah, screenwriters, yeah.
Most of the big people you will submit to will make you sign an NDA and all that kind of stuff. Get your lawyer to look at it. Make sure that it's all okay. Most of the time, it's kind of okay. In today's day and age, it's very, once you sent a submission to somebody, and the fact that like an email also counts as proof of submission, of giving an idea. So tomorrow, and of registration in a sense, you can actually say like, look, I sent it to you on this date and you've gone and saw a copy. So you have enough of a case for that. But like I'm saying, get it registered first.
Hi. So I had a question from an actor's perspective. Do you find it encouraging or irritating if an actor comes up with a suggestion, sir, ये scene ऐसे lines बदल सकते हैं इसमें या कुछ ऐसा? I'm an actor and sometimes I just, I always feel what more can I add?
Go macro. I appreciate it when an actor comes with macro level feedback. It's not about, sir, ye line or ye expression or ye this thing. It's more about, my character is going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. What if we did this to make the arc better? What if we did that to make the drama better? What if to add more conflict? I appreciate that. I appreciate when actors come and have an overview of their character. Because then they're seeing it from a writing, they're seeing it from an overall story perspective. They're not seeing it from a moment perspective. That does happen. The other thing that I do is I block, whereas like if it's a 7 o'clock shift, everybody's there at 7 o'clock in the morning at the same time. We play out the scene. I'm there, the DOP is there, first AD is there, all the actors are there. You play out the scene, and if there's any suggestions, anything, that's the moment to make the suggestions. Saying, yeah, what if I don't sit there? What if I sit there?
Hi, firstly, congratulations on the film. And I wanted to ask, in a film like Control, where 90% of it is being played via a laptop screen, it's digital. So much has to be shown, from messages to notifications to probably like AI setting. So all of it is being like done there in the final screenplay, or as the post-production gains momentum, a lot of it has to be added up to probably fill the gaps.
What a great question.
All of it is on the page. So I think exactly, it kind of goes back to the other question we were writing about when screenplay and how to create mood off the page. So even when you're reading the screenplay, you'll get the exact sense of everything from startup to the logo appears, everything from what was her name to password, whether you're going to see it as asterisks or what the actual password was. Everything was on the page. I think the bigger challenge for us was, it's one thing to write and the dialogue for an AI character, and I thought what Vikram did really well. So this movie was shot 3-4 times before the actual thing was shot. Because at the end of the day, it's an actor versus a machine. So even for us to realize, what does this AI sound like? So you had stand-in actors playing the whole thing. So then we felt like whether this sounds believable, whether the drama lands, all of that. But the short answer is yes, everything was on the page.
In terms of the comments and everything, not only I think Jasmine Soham and Gaurav, if I'm not mistaken, they did a lot of like, because you can't predict so many comments and running time, right? So then there's a lot of research that they did on what kind of comments can go in. Like I remember Jasmine had reached out to me saying, just send me 20 comments, which I can give to so many people. And I gave like based on what are the most common troll comments. Like Nella Tetti is my favorite comment. I remember sending it. So, which also helps them and me to, they're like, okay, this is what you're looking at. So in case I have not given enough, they know that, okay, this is the space that it's at.
And also, I think that team did a phenomenal job, because beyond that, especially on this, because everything is unfolding on a screen, if you have enough time to watch it for a second time,
Yeah.
you should check out all the news
small
stickers,
jokes.
everything that's going on. There's so much detailing that.
So to give you an example, I mean, to answer your question, is that, for example, on the script, the time when Nella posts that photo, she scratches out, she posts it, she talks to Beena, and then she puts it out, and there's all those comments over there. Like, that will be in the screenplay, because that's crucial, that's important to the drama. The 4 comments up and the 4 disgusting comments down is not, because you can't write 15 comments in the screenplay, it's unnecessary. What's the importance of the stuff? So, what's not in the screenplay, for example, suggestions on a YouTube page that will come on the side, captions of videos, first comments on videos, like that kind of stuff is not, that you can't.
But the moment they're like, okay, listen, this specifically, can you give us a voice? Like, what could be the caption? Or like this, I'm sure we couldn't have written, was that when she is posting that black, when she blacked the face, she's written, a hashtag Bhaad Mein Jo. And you simple stuff like just backspace and then saying the right spelling, like that's really cool that you cannot majorly write, like that's a moment on.
That was actually Ananya when she was typing, and she typoed and went back and typoed and went back.
Which is so super believable. Yeah, so that as much as we'd love to say we wrote every moment, it's not the case. Yeah.
Like we were talking about pitching right now, so many production houses don't have a website, or they don't have like development people that we can access to. So how does one do that? Like how to ask the process?
We really get very into our craft. We feel like we're writers and you should know the story, which you should. And I think that pride that we have is great. But there is a certain amount of networking that we need to do. As much as that word is, we hate it the most, we need to take a shower, wear decent clothes, smell okay, and just go approach a person. I have watched people being approached by some very backpack boys and who go like, sir, my paas ek movie hai, you're already a stereotype. So it will be very tough for you to break into that. When I'm pitching, I truly try and capture someone's attention with as much honesty, and the basic rules of socializing always affect. So keeping in mind, I mean, as much as you're researching about writing and everything, you have to see who are the industry leaders, who do you aspire to work with, and don't stalk them, that's weird. Okay. But I'm sure there are enough mixers and places where you can approach them saying that, hey, this is what it is. If
100%.
art is art, yeah.
100%. Yeah, this is writers and directors that I've actually sort of like met, because most of the time, look, it tends to happen. Writers and directors tend to be the quietest people in any room, on any place. They're the backbenchers. They're the ones who are like quietly sitting down. After a point, it doesn't matter what your personality is. You can be the quietest guy in the room, but if you believe in your material, it'll come out from the way you pitch it.
Personal identity and freedom has been a theme of your films. What is the experiences or something that has driven that?
I don't pick a theme. I just think that sometimes you just pick a story. You're just attracted towards a certain story. You're attracted towards it really is that a certain character and a certain story. I don't think thematically. I think it just sometimes they are, and I'm also puzzled sometimes. And somebody's like, "But you made Trapped again." So I said, "Have I really?" You're like, "Yeah, this is the digital version of it." And then you kind of like think back, and you're like, am I gravitating towards that kind of stuff? But it's not conscious at all. I think there's a certain amount of and I know someone posted saying the loneliness of characters in Motwane's films, and I'm like, wow, I never saw any of those characters in that sort of way. I think there are certain, I love introspective moments. I love the fact of, characters against the world. I love that sort of, that's the stuff. But yeah, but there's no theme stuff here.
This is for both of you. Regarding the naming of characters, do you all spend a lot of time thinking about how to name the character?
No, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
The short answer.
How do you go about choosing the correct name?
No, so in this case, Nella actually means light. It helps me find the core of that character, and then I just waste half an hour researching different languages, and then before what's Latin for this word, or what's Sanskrit for that word, or whatever, and you waste 45 minutes in there at least. But I think, yeah, that's just the fun of it. So no matter where you're writing somewhere, you realize, that's the name of the character. Maybe I should try and find that. How do I bring a bit more That was, yeah, that's
Also, the fact that her name is Nalini.
correct.
Which is,
But
yeah. Which is
I did
great.
see that thing, and I think got to give credit to Ananya. She herself, I think in the writers' retreat, she herself said, "Hey,
Why not
would she call
Nalini?
Nella?"
Yeah.
And then she actually planted that saying, going, "Hey, maybe her name is something else," and she chose Nella as her online.
So basically, when I'm writing, I'll start writing, and what happens is I'll change whatever I've written, and then I never get to the second act. In my head, I have my second act, I have my third act. But how do you, like, and every time I write, it's a better version of Act 1. So how do you move beyond that?
Do you have a dead? Do you have a dead?
I don't.
When do you write? Do you write 2 hours before the submission?
Always write before the deadline. But then how do you know that yahan pe it's done, now it's good, now I can move ahead? Because it gets better every time.
This is a horrible thing to say, but I love to take the romance out of writing. It's just what we do. So once you take the romance out of it, it isn't about sitting behind, just write on your phone. Right? Most of my writing I do on my notes. My first draft is done on the notes. So I'm not even wasting time overthinking this. It is just, I just want to get to the end of the story as soon as possible. So then I can sit back and go, is there even a story in this, or I'm just lying to myself?
We as writers want to give, since we're in our own, we want to make sure that when they read it, no, we're like, you've seen me, huh? You've seen how well I write. But the thing is, the best writing is something that can be converted on screen. It's not that you are a fabulous writer with all the words in the world. I feel like have I written enough for him to now take it forward? That's what it is. So you're not running a solo race. It's a marathon. Especially writers are part of a really long marathon for you.
That's such a nice answer. Thanks, guys.
This was a great session. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
What you can do is you can drop in your questions at, I'm going to drop an email also, cliffhanger@sumukhisuresh.com, and I'll forward it to them. And we'll try and see if you can get the answers. Okay? Thank you so much. Watch Control if you haven't. Okay? Thank you so much, guys. Good night.